just decided to be sharing my learnings with you people as well, so that it can be of great help to everyone. All right, so the topic is student engagement within a UDL framework. That would be a universal design learning framework. But before I proceed, I would want to know that what is your interpretation or what is your already experience with the term engagement? If you people could please quickly go to menti.com and write your comment over there. I am sharing the link in the chat as well, so each one of you can go to the link and add your comment on that. The code is 2519459. Okay, so this is an additional exercise for the people who are in person probably, but I think the ones who are online, it will be very convenient for you to go to the link. I hope there aren't any problems. If there is anything, you can definitely let us know in the chat. And to also see, I'll write the passcode here, 2519459. So for the people who are joining, they can go to the Menti link and share their perspective over here. And then we can review that what comments have already been added over here. I hope you people are familiar. For example, if I say for me, engagement would be involvement. And you can just mention your comment over there, submit it, and okay. Are you people able to access the code? Repeat the code. Yes, it is 2519459. Okay. So a few people are saying the code is not working for them. It's absolutely fine. You can just mention your comment in the chat. This is something that happens at times with technology, but I just wanted to make you people aware of one platform that is with the name of Menti. You can simply either comment in the chat, and for the people who are already here, you can in person comment that how would you define engagement? What is engagement for you? So anybody from this side, in-person people? Involving someone into the discussion or having an attention towards. Okay, so we get one comment that says involvement with attention. All right, yeah, that's very good. Anything else that we have in the chat? Okay, so
with involvement to make a connection with students.
Okay, very good. Building up a connection. Okay, Ms. Rubab says interest, passion, curiosity, student involvement, Dr. Farasat, and seriousness. Engaging the students involving securing their interest activities being introduced. Yeah, thank you so much. So if we see, most of the people are commenting that when we talk about student engagement, it mainly refers to involving somebody. I try to involve you guys, but as we know, at times there are techno lapses and we are not really able to make full use of technology, but at least, you know, there is a platform that you can utilize. So this is what we express considering our experiences, considering our involvement with students, that we think when they are properly engaged, involved, attentive, that is when they are actually engaged with us. And the experts have a slightly more detailed perspective when they talk about student engagement. So according to Blumenfield, Paris, and Fredericks, the Glossary of Education Reform uses the following definition of student engagement. It says the degree of attention, curiosity, interest, optimism, and passion that students show when they are learning and when they are being taught. So they categorize engagement into three categories. One is behavioral engagement, one is emotional engagement, and the third one is cognitive engagement. So when we are involving students in our classroom through different learning activities or different engagement activities, it is not just restricted to involving them physically, but that should mean that they are cognitively and emotionally involved as well in whatever they are being taught to. When we talk about behavioral engagement, it covers a student's participation in lessons. It could be attendance, it could be concentration levels, and their involvement in social aspects of learning as well. I don't know if the cursor, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. So talking about emotional engagement refers to Okay, I'll be using my like keypad. I will not be using the device. Okay. The emotional part refers to a student's feelings, especially towards the subject or the course they are studying, their teacher, their peers, and their overall academic experience. I'm sure most of you have experienced this. At times, there are students who are just registering the courses to cover up their credit hours. At times, it's just the requirement for them as a degree. So at times I've observed, especially when you are teaching those students who have not decided their majors yet, that they at times do not have an emotional engagement with whatever is being taught to them. And the third one is cognitive engagement. It covers a student's motivation and investment in their own education. And this is what we are able to see in certain students, and at times we realize that this is an aspect, the cognitive engagement is something that is lacking in students. So as instructors, as faculty members, as mentors as well, what we're going to learn today is that what can be different strategies in which we can, I know it's not possible to ensure 100% engagement, but at least we can try that when we are teaching the students, we are able to involve them at the behavioral part, emotional part, and the cognitive part as well. So this is again an overview or a very short recap of what behavioral, emotional, and cognitive engagement is about. And when we talk about engagement, Schlechty talks about two important things. Okay, I added a few slides, but because considering the time constraint at times the internet speed as well, we will not be doing these activities as for now. But before I wrap up the session, I will be briefing you about these as well. So Padlet is a tool which I very regularly use in my classrooms whenever I am engaging my students in any discussion, or if I want them to write any recap or a review for whatever they have learned today. So we will do one activity on Padlet as well, but not right now. So you can either write it in the chat that as for now, what are different activities that you use for student engagement in your classrooms? And the people who are here can comment in person that what are some of the activities or any one or two activities that you use to engage your students. And when I talk about engagement, this would not mean an ice-breaking activity that we usually conduct in the beginning of the classes. Would mean what do you use to engage them in the topic or build up in their interest in something that they're going to study on that specific day.
Like I usually ask them to write something related to the topic and then share what are their views, what they have to do.
Okay, so you try to build up that what prior knowledge they have about the topic?
After delivering my lecture,
okay,
then I try to like know whether they got what I was saying or not.
Okay, so you try to see how much they have regained and what are the key takeaways for them. All right. Any other comment, please? Okay, so Ms. Rubab says think, pair, and share role plays discussions. Yes, very good. Yes, sir.
I'm not doing it right now for a year or so, but earlier it was too good. I don't know why I left it. So I asked them to create a common Google document in the classroom and put their comments, like bullet points over there from. So everyone is contributing in creating that document during the class.
Okay. That's very interesting to know. Yeah, during the class they can add their comments. It's more like the way our students are involved in technology, and most of the time they're on different social media platforms and commenting. So that is one version of making them comment on what the topic is about.
So we have a document at the end of the classroom which reflects somehow the contributions of individual students as well.
That's amazing. And I think it's also reflective of how note-taking skill can help them in that.
How they are getting, how much they are getting in the classroom.
Yeah, and I think it can also help for the ones who are not listening to quickly glance and learn what we discussed in today's class. Okay, this is a very good practice. Okay, concept mapping, cool charts for brainstorming, graphing organizers. Okay, I think Ms. Rubab needs to share her more engagement techniques with us as well. Thank you so much for this, ma'am. All right, so moving ahead, when we talk about our different engagement activities, so Philip Schlechty divides engagement into 5 different levels, in which he talks about engagement, strategic compliance, ritual compliance, retreatism, and rebellion. So you might be a little curious that what these terminologies are, what do they mean, what are the symptoms, and how can you know that a student is at what stage or what level of engagement, and then what would be the strategies to make use or sort those strategies to help them be more engaged behaviorally as well, emotionally as well, cognitively as well. And in this interpretation, he talks mainly about two important things that are attention and commitment. So I hope people won't worry that I'm just quickly skimming the slides. There is a very detailed video in which we are going to know about these different levels, what are their engagement levels, and also how we can make use of them and how we can develop different strategies to ensure that, considering DEI framework in perspective, our students are able to learn and be engaged properly. I hope, okay, let me just ensure that the share sound option is enabled for the people who are online. And if you're able to listen to the audio, please give us a thumbs up reaction, so we will know that you can listen to us. Listen to the video.
Becomes helpful and provides a useful
Yeah, share sound is enabled.
Framework for thinking about what it means for students to be genuinely engaged in their learning. Schlechty defines it this way. Engagement is active. It requires the students to be attentive as well as in attendance. It requires students to be committed to the task and find some inherent value in what he or she is being asked to do. The engaged student not only does the task assigned, but also does the task with enthusiasm and diligence. In 2002, Philip Schlechty developed a framework for thinking about student engagement based on two core ideas of attention and commitment. At the bottom you have rebellion, which involves diverted attention and no commitment to the task. This is the student who seems to be acting out and causing disruptions, and as a result, they fail to learn from the task. Next, you have retreatism with no attention and no commitment. Unlike the rebellion, this student in retreat is not actively disrupting the learning, but instead seems to be kind of checked out. This student is often distracted and emotionally withdrawn from the task, and as a result, this student learns little or nothing from the task. At the next level, you have ritual compliance. This involves both low attention and low commitment. Unlike retreatism, a ritually compliant student doesn't completely check out, but instead is doing the bare minimum to avoid confrontation. This student will learn at a low level, and the task will not be retained over time. Next is strategic compliance. Often this looks like engagement because the student might be performing at a high level, but it's not. Here the student has high attention on the task, but low commitment to what he or she is doing. This is the student who is playing the game of school, focused on things like grades, parental approval, rewards, and class rank. But the learning isn't intrinsically rewarding, and as a result, this student will often learn at a high level, but fails to retain the learning over time or transfer it to a new context. And then finally, you have engagement. This requires both high attention and high commitment. Here, a student completely buys in out of a strong sense of intrinsic motivation, and this includes meaning and choice and challenge. This student will continue focusing even when the task gets more complex and challenging, and often they're going to choose to learn even when it is ungraded. This student will learn at a deep level, and the transfer will continue to new contexts. And this is why it's important that we as teachers focus on how to make the subject intrinsically engaging. And this happens when we tap into student curiosity and creativity and purpose. And when this happens, students are more likely to grow into passionate, lifelong learners.
So I hope you have clarity now that when we talk about different levels of engagement, what different levels of engagement students have in the classroom. And now I think this video has also helped you to identify there are a lot of times when there are students who are sitting and they're disrupting, so they are at the lowest level of engagement. And I think you will also realize that usually the ones who are sitting in the first two rows are the ones who are more highly engaged. So once you have been able to identify, okay, this student is at this certain level, this is the strategy I need to adapt, only then we'll be able to engage them more effectively. So basically, an engagement in the classroom has to be an indicator of a student's success. It should also be related to their mental health and potential to affect others. When I talk about mental health, I know we are not professionals, or we are not people who are actually trained to look after the mental health. But when I talk about mental health, it could also refer to different things. For example, when I'm teaching writing and communication, there is one thing that I usually tell them, that how do you distinguish between listening and hearing? So one is something that is voluntary, intentional, whereas hearing is something you don't do with specific intention in mind. And how, if you are not feeling well, that can be a physiological noise. If there's construction going on around, that can be a physical noise. And then if you have something else in your mind, that could be a psychological noise, which would affect your attention and your engagement towards the lecture that is being given. So these are just a few basic things that probably we can take care of. I usually tell them, if you're hungry, have a snack, even eat it in the class, but make sure you are attentive enough that you are able to pay attention to, and you're able to retain any one or two major things that are being taught to you that day. So we will just take 5 minutes for this. You can, obviously, because we can't really group up on Zoom as the moment. I have 27 people, but could you please describe any one occasion when your students was or were not engaged? It could be one or more than one. You can be 3 people in one group, and then I can have 5 people in one group. And what do you think? Suggest a possible reason for your observation, and perhaps what might you might have done or would you do again to facilitate engagement. So you can take your good. In fact, I think because you people are already experts being the instructors, I hope 3 minutes should suffice, and within the next 2 minutes, you can tell me about that. So we can come up with any one occasion that you can recall. You can discuss with each other if you people want to. It's absolutely all right. And the people who have joined us online, if they could share their learnings as well, or any such experience they had in the past. And now, what do you think that after acquiring this much information, this is not complete, I know, we will definitely be covering up the entire topic, but now after realizing that how there are different levels of engagement and how it affects the involvement and learning of a student, what do you think? What strategy probably you can develop, or maybe if you go back and think about it, what do you think? How can you facilitate your student? I hope the people who are attending are active and engaged learners. Anshi?
You actually took 1.5 minutes out of our 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm just pausing. I won't interrupt. So yeah, I'll just see what people are mentioning on Zoom.
Oh, man.
Okay, I'm reading the answers over here. Okay, Dr. Asher says student using phone while I was speaking to the students. I intentionally asked question from that student. Yes, being attentive and picking up on particularly students who are not attentive. Okay, so do you think when you asked the person the question, was he able to answer you, Dr. Asher, or he was blank? And now, what do you think? What can be a better strategy for you to adapt? Okay, the next response is vocabulary games such as simple dialogues for the class to guess the word. Yeah, I play hangman with my students whenever I'm introducing them any new word. I play hangman game with them. It engages them as well, and then they are able to remember that word as well. So I do that as well. Thank you. Dr. Purat says some students are not attentive when they are sleepy. Most of the time in the morning classes, yeah, particularly. So when they are sleepy, they are not able to pay attention. Sometimes you have to make special efforts to include them, either by talking directly to them. Sometimes I try to bring in humor. Yes, a very, very effective technique, bringing humor. Sometimes I try to connect course content with their favorite TV shows. Yes, that's a very effective technique as well. So, Mr. Rubab said facilitate them by helping them through clues. Sometimes they can and sometimes they cannot. Yes. Yes, very right, Dr. Asher. So this is what we are here today for. Ms. Agda says, I plan a lot of discussion-based activities for 5 to 8 minute duration. Having a timer runner on the screen also enhances motivation. Yeah. So this is what we are going to also learn today, that how you can adapt different strategies, considering that this generation is a technological generation and they are so much into technology and social media apps. So I try to make use of them as well. One example I would like to add over here from my experiences, though this is not relevant to that they missed attention, but I think I usually, when I start my classes, you usually know there is one particular student who would not be listening to you. So every time in my class, I assign one person whom I say that you are going to give a recap of whatever I'm going to teach today. So that person is very like attentive that day. They start taking down notes. So this eventually builds up the habit. I assign different students, but most of the time, the ones who have a low attention span or the ones who are distracted by their phones. And at times I just put their phones along with mine so they cannot use their phones and get distracted. Yes, Hanshi, आप लोगों की कोई feedback या comment? या आप लोगों का question? Using phones. Okay. One thing that I do and most of my colleagues know as well, that there's a fine of 50 rupees. So if I'm giving a lecture, and while during the learning process, if somebody uses a phone or if their bell rings, they are fined 50 rupees. And then by the end of the semester, I collect that fine, I add some more money, we order some food, we play games, and we make use of that money in this way. So they already know this. If they're late, they're using phones. So now they're very particular. Their phones are always on silent. They don't use their phones while I'm teaching. Once we are on a short break, then they can. So there can be different strategies that you can utilize.
Your strategy is similar to mine. We also collect and we call it a samosa party.
Yeah, yes.
Afterwards.
Depending upon how much money you are able to collect. Okay, Hanshi, anything from this group?
I think I used to, I teach mathematics and I used to listen on everyday basis that the student is saying whenever I ask some question from the student who is not very much attentive in the lecture, then he or she used to say that I was absent in the previous lecture. So what I have adopted now, that I usually recall the concepts in the first initial 4 to 5 minutes and recall the previous lecture. So the student is not able to
You don't give them the room to say I was absent. You already gave a recap. Yeah. Okay, this is good. Yes, sir. Please.
Can you please go back to a couple of slides that where we have the circles connecting this?
Sure. I think I'm having a techno lapse because
Okay.
I'm
I
trying.
think what we are talking.
Shahid Sam is not here.
It's fine. There was like multiple factors, including content, students, and instructor, which are contributing in the students' engagement. So that means if
This one?
there were circles over there, I think next. This one.
Yeah.
This one. No, please.
Achha.
Another one. That was about student engagement next. This one. Please. Sorry to interrupt.
No. It's absolutely fine, sir. This is engagement as well.
Yeah. So student engagement is complex thing.
True.
And contributed by multiple factors. That it means that there is a good or bad thing at the same time.
True.
The good thing is that even if one of the factors is not contributing well, we can divert the resources from the other sides to get the equal results of student engagement. Cell phone is like one of the diversions. It's not the source.
Exactly.
So that means if you are not able to deal with the cell phone, like I never stop any of my students to use cell phone in my class with all due respect. And we differ, I let them to use whatever they want to try in this. But I just try to use the other things. Like just try to make the content more interesting, try to involve them more open. And I can tell you, it's a natural human intent to learn.
Exactly.
We feel good when we learn something new. So if we try to push the other factors, we can get rid of these little things at all. So this is not a primary thing we need to worry about, because technology, we cannot stop it.
True.
It will be there. It is part of us as well. Whenever we get free, we started browsing our cell phones. How you can expect that our students will not going to do this thing? So this is something very natural. So how about strengthening the other components? Like,
Yeah, and there are times when, especially when they are learning new words, I've tried that they have like offline dictionaries in their phones. At times, I intentionally ask them, okay, this is a new terminology. Can you quickly research this fact on Google and let me know? So that should also not mean that you are, because if they're not having it in their hand, at the back of their mind, they will be still with the same thought. Okay, my phone is there, my phone is there, my phone is there. So not every time, once in a while, depending upon how do you know the student. But yes, you're absolutely right, Dr. Mustafa, that we can think up of the other factors that can eventually contribute. And this is what we are going to learn, that when even we talk about engagement, it is multifaceted. It does not mean that there can be only one thing that should be done. So, and even talking, while I was preparing this content, I was wondering, Ms. Sabha said she is a maths teacher. So it cannot be possible that all strategies will work for every discipline and for every subject. So it will be entirely dependent upon the instructor, how they can make use of certain techniques and see which ones work the best for them in their course of teaching. So different factors that influence student engagement are relational learning, dispositions to be a learner, motivation and interest, personal agency or cognitive autonomy, I apologize, okay, self-efficacy, goal orientation, academic or self-regulated learning. This is something that you were talking about, and the relationships with their teachers and peers. So there are some people who are social learners. If you engage them into group activities, they're able to learn more in a much better way. Some people are visual learners. They really like to have some visual aids in front of them. So I think with the passage of time, we're able to identify this as well. And then you can develop, okay, if this person is better in a group work, you can probably put them in a group or in a peer. Somebody said role play, pair share. So you can use different techniques and different strategies depending upon what content you are trying to teach to the students. So considering the time constraint as well, I will not be really rushing, but I will be just trying to touch the major important things, and the slides will be shared with you people. So I hope you can access them on your own as well. There are references as well at the end, so you can explore further if you want it to as well. So student engagement does not look the same in every classroom. You can engage some of the people all of the time. You can engage some of them some of the time, but it's difficult to engage all of the people all of the time. A natural tendency would be attention span. Humanly, it's not possible for us to remain focused, especially I wondered this when we have classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, when you have a 1 hour and a 15-minute class. So it's not possible that after a complete 1 hour, especially in subjects like maths and technical subjects, biology, probably chemistry, that the students will be entirely attentive in the entire session. So over here, there's the second thing that we also need to keep in mind is DEI, that stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have students with different needs, with different educational backgrounds, different attention spans and interest, different language abilities, and different cultural backgrounds. So I'll just add my personal experiences over here. So it doesn't seem like a fancy or a story, but people are able to understand that what I'm telling. So we were having midterm speeches in the writing and communication course, and there came a student who did not make any eye contact the entire while I was reading, but still when he came back, I was very appreciative of him. So he comes from Sargodha. He said, it's the first time ever in my life that I'm even giving a speech. So if the pronunciations are not correct, if he is stammering, or if he forgets, it's absolutely all right. We need to understand that people are coming from different educational backgrounds, different school setups. So that would not mean that everybody is going to be aligned or on the same page. So considering this, that when we talk about DEI and how we can ensure that students with so many different diversities can equally be engaged, we need to bring UDL over here. This is again DEI framework, which talks about culture, indigenous ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, physical and intellectual disability, age, socioeconomic status, and religious and spiritual beliefs. And you must be aware, all of you, that in current era, our students are very updated when we talk about all these terminologies. They probably have more information and more knowledge than we have. So we being as the facilitators, we being the mentors, how we can ensure that we are taking care of the DEI framework as well. Because when people are coming from different races, ethnicity, religion, language, or socioeconomic status, it's really important that we motivate them positively. Again, another example from the speeches, that somebody was wanted to talk about the conflict that is going on in Israel and Palestine. And then there were a few people who were talking about the anti-Semitic perspective. There were some of them who were talking about the religious perspective, and how somebody was talking about the political agenda. So it's very important that when people are talking about different things, they are positively motivated. A terminology that we often use is that we need to learn to agree with the disagreements. So if you are doing that, you need to be motivated. And I often tell them that this is with regard to the research perspective. It has nothing to do with our personal views. As a researcher, you should not have bias, you should be critical, you should be analytical, and this is how you should be approaching any topic. So once our students are motivated, they will be positive engaged. But if there's any negative engagement, that will definitely, or if there's a negative motivation, that will definitely lead to a negative kind of engagement. You might observe there are students who will always keep on bringing up negative comments in everything that you're telling or teaching. If you're teaching them APA citation, one student will say, Miss, everything is available on the software and tools. We don't need to learn how to learn citation. And then I tell them, what if someday the laptop is not working, or your tool is not working? What will you do then? At least you need to know some basic things. So initially what we were talking about, that how motivation and commitment eventually leads to how engaged your students are. And for this, we have Universal Design for Learning, that is also known as UDL. UDL framework basically talks about that how we are having three factors, that is engagement, expression, and representation. So I will not be going into extensive details. I would want to talk mainly about the strategy. So multiple means of engagement refers to different learning activities or assessments. Again, representation can be in the same way. And for multiple means of action and expression, you can again have different either activities or assessments. And how they can be done is that when we talk about multiple means of engagement, it should talk about the why of learning. The multiple means of representation should talk the what of learning, and then multiple means of action and expression should talk about the how of learning. There are a lot of times when we assign different activities, or we give them different topics to work on different assignments. But if the student doesn't really know why or what they are doing, they might not be able to give an entire input, or they might not be able to actively engage in the task that they do. अक्सर क्या होता है कि जी ग्रेड लगने इतने मार्क्स की असाइनमेंट है, बस असाइनमेंट कर ली. So आपने फिर उसमें actually if you people recall the definition which said active involvement with passion, where students are of the perspective, अच्छा grading तो होगी, but we are actually able to learn something out of it as well. So a few strategies that we can adapt. I'm sorry, now I think I'm rushing, but I'm just also keeping the time constraint in mind. So you will have the slides, you can read them on your own as well. I hope that will be of much help to you. So when we talk about different learning activities, you can adapt different strategies. And another technique of engaging your students would be getting to know your students, maintaining consistent communication, acknowledging, respecting, practicing cultural sensitivity, incorporating diversity, and giving students freedom and flexibility. So when we talk about getting to know our students, this is one thing that I do with my students, that when we are meeting for the very first time in the beginning of the semester, so instead of them asking them to come and say, this is my name, this is my qualification, I give them different activity-based puzzles. So it talks about, okay, my name is this, I'm really good at, I need help with, my strongest emotion is this, sometimes I'm afraid of, and then they exchange and read about each other. So that is another effective way of engaging them and getting to know them as well. So that's entirely your choice, that how you can engage your students in different activities and then ensure that the learning is being effective. Some strategies are, you can either use student-centered learning, which talks about how an instructor can be a sage, not a sage on the stage, but a guide on the side. So if you can see over here, usually the lecture-based classes go, the teacher comes, they give the lecture, and because the students are at times afraid, they won't really ask questions, and then the teacher leaves. But when we talk about being a guide on the side, it should be more student-centered learning, which talks about the knowledge, experience, and beliefs, and then you can have individual collaborations and with different students. Somebody already mentioned role play, pair share. probably assigning groups, or maybe making them be engaged in such a way, finding common grounds, or maybe finding differences, and then talking about them in the form of a group or a pair. So this is one activity that I wanted to go ahead, but I did not, because at times we have this internet problem, the bandwidth and the speed. So maybe this is one activity when the very first time they're starting up, you can go ahead with the social identity wheel or personal identity wheel. They can choose 3 adjectives to describe themselves, their number of siblings, their birth order, their hobby, and maybe that can be a good starter for them to know each other and to be engaged.
Perfect.
So this can be one way. I just thought that initially when we will start, I would request you people to rename yourselves according to the color or birth month, and then you can feel associated when we talk about inclusivity and being engaged. Then you can have either active or blended learning. It can be a slideshow focused delivery, a flipped classroom, or a hybrid delivery. Again, it will vary with the course that you are teaching. It will vary with the discipline that is being taught. Each engagement strategy or tool will not work for every discipline. As an instructor or as a facilitator, you are the best judge to decide. And after, I think, teaching for a few days, you're easily able to evaluate that which strategies are proving of great help to your students, and which of them are not really working, and you can change them. So this is the social identity wheel. Probably this can be one way of initiating conversations, or when the people are meeting, talking about different perspectives. This can be one of the tools. And another thing that can be used as an engagement triggers could be a picture. It could be a statement I have always told myself, and then ask them to take time, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and what do they usually tell themselves? What do you need more or less of in life? And I will not play this entire trailer, but being a linguist and the person who teaches linguistics as well, I remember when I have to teach my students about either phonetics and phonology course or morphology and trailer from the movie.
There are days that define your story beyond your life, like the day they arrived.
Signs of what might be called first contact. The objects measure at least.
I'm Colonel G.T. Weber from Army Intelligence. Pack your bags.
And then when they communicate,
You're at the top of everyone's list when it comes to translation.
They need to speak.
Are you insane?
Yeah, so that can be one way of, I think, okay. Do we still have internet with us?
It's possible they're prodding us to fight among ourselves.
Trailer is about a movie which is titled as Arrival, in which they show that some aliens, they land on the earth, and how the humans are trying to converse with them for communication perspective, and how the aliens have different signs, and how the humans try to decode and interpret those signs, and how it tells about languages and structures. So it's very relevant to my teaching then, because we are studying languages, we are talking about symbols and signs, and how some spoken languages, they don't have written structures, and how, so this is basically is like an engagement trigger for them. So it builds their interest. Now they're inquisitive. At times you can take activities in parallel as well. Okay, let's watch this movie together, write your review or whatever we have learned till now. How do you think is relevant to this movie? Do you think the facts are stated correctly? Do you think, no, there is something that is missing? And if they talk about an alien language, why don't you research and see that in actual human world, how many languages exist without structure? So it just develops their interest, and then they're more actively engaged in the topic. They do their research, and it just helps them to be actively engaged when we talk about active learning. So these are a few tools that you can use. We have Padlet, PolyF, Mentimeter, Kahoot, Perusal. One thing I would like to add as a disclaimer is that some of the platforms are entirely free. You can use them for free. But then there are a few that would require a purchase. So if some tool is being of great help to you, that will be entirely your decision if you would like to go ahead with that. And then we can have webinars, podcasts, screen sharing, YouTube videos. They are very effective as well, adding those into your lessons as well. And then because now is the time for AI, these are a few tools for AI which can be used by instructors. I've added a few details as well, that what you can make use of. For Magic School AI, you can write lesson plans. For the educator, you can draft policy documents. You can produce assessment feedback with question well. You can generate any question. on any subject. So I just thought of adding a few things other than ChatGPT. Otherwise, ChatGPT is the only talk in the town. And it can also help you for reading comprehensions and quizzes for the people who are teaching different language courses. And then Quizalize helps you to create quizzes on any topic, and you can even export them to Google Forms. You can have dashboards with live results and feedback. So these can be a few strategies, these can be a few tools which can be utilized by us, by any of the instructors and facilitators to at least enhance, to at least try that our students, when we talk about engagement, they are actively engaged with us. So concluding with student engagement, DEI and UDL framework, Benjamin Franklin says that tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn. So keeping the diversity in mind, this is what I think we need to keep on striving. I know most of us are, of the faculty is very senior, they're already doing an amazing job, but it's really good when we keep on refreshing our knowledge, bringing up new activities and bringing new tools, because the generation that we are teaching is a new generation. So we need to be updated along with them. We need to be on the same page and also ensure that how we are effectively engaging them and making them empowered and effective learners. So that will be all from my side. If there will be any questions, we can go ahead with our questions. I have also added the references. Thank you so much. I've also added the references in case somebody wants to explore more on student engagement and DEI and UDL. So you can go to these references. So if there are any questions, we can go ahead with them. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Naomi. You're all requested to please type your questions and your comments in the chat box. And meanwhile, please respond to the polling. I'm going to launch the polling.
In the meanwhile, I'm just going to show. Okay, am I supposed to
You
fill
can do
in
that.
the
Yes, you can do that.
polling as okay?
My side.
Okay, I would want to show you guys one more thing, because there's a time constraint as well, and then we have, I'm sorry to say, but a little bit slow technology. So this is Padlet. If you people can see, I very actively use this. I created 4 different Padlets. I wanted you people to respond on that, but we can't do it right now. So this is basically how Padlet works. You don't need to sign up. You don't need anything else. So for example, if I want to add my comment, so okay, this is Naomi's comment. I'll add my name. Okay, the session was what should I write? I don't want to practice. The session was DEI. Okay, only if I'm posting this. Okay, so yeah, I have to click on publish, and this is how it will appear to you in the classroom. And then people can add their name, they can add their comments. So this is one way. It's like visible on the screen. You can show them, you can choose different layouts, you can choose different backgrounds. And it is an amazing platform. You can add several things. For example, if I want to add an image, I can add that. If I want to add any YouTube link, I'm clicking it so you can see more details. You can add upload a link, audio recorder, video recorder, Google Drive. So there are several options that can be used over here. If you look over here, it can be image search, GIF, YouTube. Even for example, I remember at times, just to engage students, if we ask them, if your life was a song, what song do you think it could be? So because we are in an education. Jeene dena. Okay, Dr. Mustafa says. So if you want, you can add YouTube links as well, and you can publish them. So it keeps them engaged, active, adding different images and questions and comments, and you can even rate them. So this is also a very effective mean. I find this one platform very effective to be used to engage the students, and then they can read each other's comments. They can comment on that as well. So I find this Padlet platform to be very, very effective.
The Padlet free to use?
Yeah, the Padlet is entirely free.
Okay.
And even the students don't need to register. You can just create the Padlet, you can share the link with them, and they can easily log in and they can publish.
We have a few comments. Ms. Sadia Makbul says, great job, Ms. Naomi, very informative. Ms. Rana Rubab says, thank you so much for a comprehensive session, Ms. Naomi. Excellent slides and many thanks for such an informative session, Ms. Sabah Iqbal, Ms. Umaid Hayat Khan. Nice content worth the time. It would be great if this recording we will share the recording, Mr. Hayat. Ms. Akhtar says, thank you, Naomi. This was awesome. The cutlery image is very powerful. Miss Aksa says, thanks Naomi for such an informative session. Miss Kurutalan Liaquat says that I would like to compliment you on this wonderful session. The right amount of input, discussion, engagement, and introduction to new useful technological platforms. Awesome job. Thank you. Miss Mavish Kayum says, thanks a lot, Miss Naomi. An amazing session indeed, and thanks. It was a great session. Any questions? If we will be sharing the materials, the links
Yeah,
as
Dr.
well.
Mustafa has a question. Yes, sir.
I have questions since everyone is having comments. I have
Dear
a
paid
question.
actors.
I have a very genuine question.
Yes, please.
Samosas are very engaging, but why not we are not allowed to eat samosa during the session? If there is any policy from the CLT that samosas are not allowed to eat during the
No,
session?
sir, we don't have that policy.
So now it's my comment, the session is more engaging than the samosas. Thank you very much.
सिर्फ उसके पीछे ये होगा कि अगर आप समोसा खाएंगे मुंह में समोसा होगा बोल नहीं पाएंगे तो आप एक्टिवली एंगेज नहीं हो सकेंगे सो फॉर एक्टिव एंगेजमेंट या तो आप पान की तरह साइड पे रखिए और फिर खा लें या so thank you everyone. I don't think we have any question then.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Call it off. Thank you, ma'am.